is going to be a good one, man. You excited for tonight, though?
Oh, man, I'm so excited.
It's going to be a good one.
First long set of comedy in a long time.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Dude, I wish I could be there. Sucks being stuck on the disabled list.
Oh, man, they had to sideline you.
They had to sideline me.
And we're back at the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris Quinn, with my other co-host, Dominic DiTolla. And we're here just talking sports. Two comics who love sports talking sports. So here we go.
Yeah, a couple comics. Chris is pretty stoked for his show here tonight.
I was telling our producer in there, Ty, I always felt weird saying that line because I hadn't done comedy in like 12 months. So now that I'm back in the role, that I feel right saying it, you know?
Yeah, dude, I'm on a show with fucking Charles Ludwig in a couple weeks.
I saw that. That show looks stacked for Tucson comics.
I feel like it's all great comics, but it's too many.
It is.
You know,
it was like 9-10 comics.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna, you know, I could see splitting that up over a couple nights, but like, I mean, whatever. I'm stoked about it.
I was going to say, is everybody getting 5 minutes on that? Because
That's
that
what
will
I
be a
mean.
weird one, but it might be good.
I mean, like, if everyone's like, you know, swinging for the fences in 5 minutes, that's great. But still, like, that just seems like, unless you want the show to be like 5 hours, which totally comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway, today we're getting back into some college football action. I don't think have we done a college football one since the UH one?
No, I think that was our last one.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty extended period of time. We got picking into college football today with the 2000 Oregon State Beavers.
I feel like this is the only time anybody's going to talk about Oregon State Beaver football is this 1 year.
I mean, but it is the year.
Yes.
And when you consider what happened leading up to this, it's amazing that this even happened. Because go in the Wayback Machine. Let's go 88 in the DeLorean here. In 1964, Oregon makes the Rose Bowl. In the early 60s, they had good teams. Like, I think Terry Baker won a Heisman. He was their quarterback. They were under Tommy Prothero. And then from 66 to 70 under DeAndros, they were an above 500 team.
But just like average, and that was back when it was the
PAC-8.
PAC-8, I think, yeah.
Like, they're a middling team. They're winning like 5 to 7 games every year. They're not like embarrassing.
No.
And then 1971 happens. And starting in 1971, they have 28 straight losing seasons.
They are the worst football program in the PAC-8, 10, 12, all of them.
When I say like losing seasons, I don't mean they're going like 4-7 and 5-6.
No,
or
they're
like
not close
even
to 500.
3-8.
Yeah,
they're putting up goose eggs in conference play. They're putting up goose eggs for this season. I mean, like when you think about how god awful U of A is now, like they're basically the Oregon State of the conference.
But Oregon State did it for so long.
U of A's been doing this for like maybe 10 years.
And that's what I mean.
Oregon State has been did that for almost 3 decades. And it's not like these games were even close. Like Washington and Washington State and Oregon were just coming in and beating the brakes off them.
Well, before it was I think it was 97 or 98, there was an interview with a Washington player, and he said, we weren't like feeling good going to Oregon State and crushing these teams. We felt bad for them, and there was a feeling that they almost shouldn't be in the conference because
Ed Cunningham, who used to play for those Purple Rain Washington teams.
I knew you were going to pick that name. That's my favorite part of this podcast is I bring up a random story and you're like, well, that was actually Ed Cunningham, and let me give you some tackle info on him.
No, but he had said like you just felt bad. Like,
yeah, that was.
It's like we're going to go in and kick their asses. No, it's like, oh man. It's like when I beat that girl and blind kid in wrestling. You're just like, do I have to?
I'll take the win.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing was they would go up like 45-0 in the first half, and then the second half would be like, you know, subs in that kind of game.
Dude, could you imagine what those crowds must have been like? Like in Major League 2, there had to be like one Randy Quaid out there just shouting obscenities at them.
Too high? Too high. But yeah, it like this is what makes this season so amazing is if you're a Oregon State Beaver fan and you went through these horrible seasons.
Dude, not even the Padres were that. I can't even imagine, like, because I'm looking at these records. It's like 0-11, 1-10, 2-9, back to 1-10, 3-8, but no conference wins because you beat like Portland State or some shit team.
Yeah.
You know? I like you can't believe it, but in 97 something really important happens. they hire Mike Riley, a former Southern Cal assistant. And Mike Riley, interesting story, we'll get into him maybe in a postscript part. He helps them go 3-8 in 97. So they're on the right track. He's a great coach. And then in 98, they end up going 5-6. Like, they're on the doorstep of 500. They win the Civil War game against Achilles Smith at home. Like, there's actual optimism. Like, hey, maybe in a year or two, this team could make a bowl game.
First progress in 25 years is what they're kind of looking at. And this is what I thought was probably the best move from this program.
Well, so what ends up happening, though, and you're right, Riley gets a job offer from the San Diego Chargers in the NFL.
And why aren't you going to take that? I thought that was really weird from the Chargers, but that's a...
See, I could never... I know they had offered it to June Jones, and he had said, no, I'm going back to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And, they had said, you're working with Ryan Leaf, whatever. The Chargers weren't god-awful. I would figure they could have found a higher profile name, but he offered it to him and he goes.
Yeah,
and
someone that went 3-8 and then 5-6. That's what I mean. Like, that record doesn't you're like.
Yeah, but he improved that program so much.
Well, yeah,
like it was almost Helen Keller miracle worker shit.
Yeah,
but
well, that's how you get that job, I guess. And then who comes in? That's my question.
Silver Fox comes in. They go out in January of 1999 and sign former multiple national champion in college football, Dennis Erickson, to a 5-year, $4.5 million contract. And for those of you who don't know, Dennis Erickson, while he's more famous for his stint with the Seahawks in the NFL and winning 2 national titles at Miami, he really became a great and known coach in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Like, he built most of his career, Montana State assistant, 71 to 73, Idaho offensive coordinator, 74 to 75, Idaho head coach, 82 to 85, Washington State head coach, 87 to 88. And in 88, he took him to the Aloha Bowl. Washington State was god-awful. They were like Oregon State level shitty at that time, but they won the Aloha Bowl against Houston. And he did have a penchant, though, and you're noticing by these little small stints of leaving very early and taking other jobs.
And I had a question on this because sometimes this happens when coaches are dirty and the program is about to face punishment. And I only bring this up because
that in Miami,
because
that's
Miami, it just rings, and then you wonder if it kind of happened in other programs, but you can see he is a winning coach, and that's...
I don't think it happened at Washington State because they just went to...
They were just a program that turned it around.
Yeah, he just dropped it off to Mike Price before he started going to strip clubs.
I imagine it would have been hard in the 90s to not have a cheating Miami team. You know what I mean? To straighten that program out would have been probably pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, Butch Davis did a really good job of getting him back on track after the mess Erickson left. But back to Oregon State.
Yeah.
Again, back to Oregon State.
But that's why this was such a huge pickup, it's
a name.
It's a name.
And you saw, I think, the progress. They shelled out the dough. And I want to point out something also very important. During this era of PAC-10, as we'll call it, football, so in the early 90s, for up until about 92, your dominant team was those Washington squads, the Purple Rain defense, going to Rose Bowl after Rose Bowl, winning a co-national championship with one of Erickson's Miami teams, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And then you have, on the other bookend, you have the beginning of Pete Carroll buying Reggie Bush's mom a house and shit, those USC teams. But there's like that decade period in the middle from like 93 to about 02, where like the Pac-12 or the Pac-10 is wide open. And when you look back, during that 10-year stretch, 7 different teams made Rose Bowls.
Well,
7 different teams won conference championships. U of A, not one of them. I just wanted to point that out to all our Tucson listeners.
I want to bring out how inaccurate the movie Speed is.
Yeah.
And he looks at her and she has like a U of A thing and he goes, good football team. And I know everybody in Tucson was like, all right, that guy's a cop, because that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Good football team.
Yeah, bro.
And then Sandra Bullock should have been like, do you watch basketball?
Exactly. That would have been more realistic. But that was said because what we're talking about right now, the Pac-10 was really anybody's game.
Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs. Yeah, because you have 93 UCLA winning it, 94 Oregon, 95 USC wins, 96 Arizona State wins, 97 it's Washington State, 98 UCLA again, 99 Stanford for some weird reason, and then 2000 it's wide the fuck open again. And in 99, Erickson's first year, he finally takes them to a bowl game.
Yep.
They go 7-4 in the regular season, and they qualify for a bowl game for the first time in, 35 years?
Has to
thereabouts,
be.
yeah. And they go to the Hawaii Bowl, which is Hawaii's first bowl game since that 92 episode we talked about.
Oh, okay.
Anyone listen to that?
I didn't know that.
Great
That's
game.
good.
Yeah. Hawaii ends up winning, I think, 23-17. Really close game. But the fact that they went 7-5, Oregon State that year was pretty remarkable.
Well, it shows recruits coming in that this is a viable program.
Well, it not only shows recruits out of high school, Erickson wants to win and win right away, and we'll discuss some of the JUCO players he brings in, particularly for the year 2000, who start lighting shit up on fire.
Well, they come in and they're just flat out ready because they're not really freshmen. So,
and one of the more important things is not only do you have almost your entire defense coming back in the year 2000, your whole offensive line is coming back, along with your already 2-year starting quarterback and your already 2-year starting tailback.
Yeah,
which in a Pac-10 that's wide the fuck open, it's like almost why not us.
Yep.
It's almost a why not us type thing.
With Erickson at coach, it's like, yep, this is our year.
Yeah, and they're basically running almost the same offense that he had at Miami, the single back with the 3 wide receivers, and then just a very a little bit on the smaller side, but very aggressive attacking 4-3 type of defense. And the defense is what really bails them out in the early going. Season.
The early in the 2000 season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you're right. The offense had a slow start. I thought that was interesting because everybody kind of talks about the offense.
Well, I'm thinking as far as the offense goes, it's probably harder for the passing game because you do have all these JUCO players coming in. Granted, you have Jonathan Smith, who's their coach now.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
Their quarterback for this season is actually their head coach now. Just a real good ball distributor, good quarterback. And, him and Ken Simonton, who's like probably about 5'6" or so, but about 190 pounds, like Pac-10 leading rusher. I mean, great player. They can kind of work independently of, developing a rapport as far as the passing game. But they start off, they almost lose out the gate.
Yep.
They almost lose kind of an embarrassing game out the gate.
Eastern Washington.
Yeah. But defense bails them out. They win 21-19. They're playing non-conference here.
And that's why it would be so embarrassing, because those first games when you're not clicking as a team and it's obvious you're a better team, that's what really screws programs like this.
Oh, yeah. And Eastern Washington's a 1AA team. They're not even, I think they're in the Big Sky. But the following week, they play New Mexico in Albuquerque and barely pull that one out 28-20. I think a long Patrick McCall, who was Simonton's backup run, kind of really iced the game. But they're really not feeling themselves at 2-0, but you still haven't started Pac-12 play or Pac-10 play, so I'm going to keep screwing that up the entire time.
That's fine.
It just keeps
it's all the same.
Changing, But then they come home and the defense pretty much establishes themselves.
And your team comes.
Yeah, San Diego State waltzes in. Granted, this is a darkness era for this program. Just a darkness football era.
Well, that's what these first 2-3 games are supposed to be for these programs. They're supposed to be warm-up, kill games, essentially.
Yeah.
So, San Diego State comes in, and that's when you see them really start to click.
Well, you see the defensive line, Ryan Atkinson and DeLawrence Grant, Ladarius Jackson, Eric Manning, and DeJuan Edwards just laying the wood. I mean, you can tell there's a distinct advantage in the front four. and they beat them 35-3.
Oh, yeah.
And while they're 3-0, nobody in the national media gives a shit because you squeaked out 2 against
Nobody.
Big 5 teams, and then you beat down on other cupcakes, so you're 3-0, and they're going in to play USC.
And USC is ranked number 8.
USC is not only ranked number 8, this dates back to kind of their losing streak.
Yep.
They've lost 26 in a row to USC entering this game, which I don't even know if that happens in college football anymore.
No, I can't think of a program that's gone that bad.
I remember Notre Dame had something like in the 40s that was broken maybe like 10 years ago against Navy, where they had beaten them like 40 some odd in a row. But
it's crazy.
26 in a row. That has to be like just, oh, God.
Yeah, so they go to USC and beat them, which is...
No, they play in Corvallis.
Okay.
Yeah, they end their 26-game losing streak. Simonton had a great run in that game to kind of, put that one away. But 31-21 at home, you're 4-0, and you just beat the number 8 team.
Now people are starting to pay attention.
Yeah, now they're on the map. Simonton had a great quote after the game. To beat USC to start the PAC-10 season, we knew that we were good. We didn't have to say it anymore. It was on. That was our SAT. That was the entrance exam.
Yep.
So
I saw a quote because they're playing Washington up next.
Yeah, Washington is good. Mind you, before this game, earlier in the season, in their non-conference schedule, they didn't have patsies. They played Miami.
Yep.
They played Miami at home. Mind you, this Miami team at the end of 2000, you could make a case, should have played for the national championship. They beat Miami in Miami's only loss of that entire year.
Yeah.
Miami did not lose a game from that point in like September of 2000 until January of 2003.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But so there was a Washington player that came out and said something like the USC game was impressive, but it's still Oregon State.
Yeah.
That's how they were mentally like preparing it. Like, still the Beavers. We still crush them every year. That was quite a lucky win. That was kind of what they were saying. And this is one of the better college football games.
Oh, I remember watching this like live. So I must have been probably like 13. And it was just back and forth. I mean, a really entertaining game. And this is where you could see Smith play really well, but his wide receivers play really well.
Yep.
I mean, he had Robert Prescott returning from the year before, as well as T.J. Houshmandzadeh, future NFLer. But they also got this JUCOer out of California by way of Miami named Chad Johnson.
Chad Johnson?
I think it's Ochocinco now. I forget which one. But like, if you've never heard his story about how he just ended up there, it's crazy. But he ends up 1 year of eligibility remaining in his college career, and he plays only one big season, and he plays it on this team, and he's their best wide receiver.
Oh, yeah, by far.
And in this game makes an amazing 80-yard touchdown catch. And I think Smith only had one shoe on the play.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the biggest moments was when Manning went out.
Yeah.
That was something I saw, was because I don't necessarily remember this game. I kind of remember watching it, but I didn't remember all the ins and outs, and I watched like highlights from it, and I was like, oh shit, Manning went out, and then you could just see the running game opened up for Washington. And
yeah, Washington kind of played ball control. They didn't want to give it back, and Washington had a really good offensive line, and like I said, Oregon State's defense is a little bit on the smaller side, despite kind of having those fast linebackers like a James Allen and Darnell Robertson, Richard Siegler, and then Nick Barnett, he was, I think, just a freshman, but he was a really good player for the Packers for a long time at linebacker.
Well, that was the thing, was they could pick up these really great players. Like, that's what this one Oregon State team had, was not just great college players, but great pro players.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they said something like they had like 7 guys who signed NFL contracts, and then in the previous 4 years, they only had like 4 players combined. So, I mean, they were a very talented team. And it comes down to the wire in this one. And Ryan Seska, despite having a great season after this point, he misses a 46-yard field goal with 14 seconds to go.
Which is a pretty long kick. Like, it's not a gimme, you know?
And this one was pretty devastating to defenses just because 51 total first downs, 978 yards. I mean, it's just throwing it across the field. But the issue is Washington now has a tiebreaker, and they're still undefeated at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So despite being 4-1, they keep, you got to play the rest of the season. You got more games to go.
And that was the thing, is sometimes a loss like that will crush a team, and sometimes it will reinvigorate them and be like, no, we're not going to lose again.
And that's basically what ended up happening, because they play Stanford the following week, who had won the Pac-10 the year before, just trounce them 38-6.
Yep.
Then they play UCLA, who's ranked 23rd at the Rose Bowl the next, and it's a classic Pac-10 game, high-scoring affair. Antonio Battle, one of their backup running backs, had converted a 3rd and 20-something on a draw in this game. It was absolutely insane, but they win 44-38. The following week they play Washington State, who's still kind of reeling post Leaf, 38-9. Just like, it's almost like one week it's their defense, then the next week it's their offense, and it just kind of alternates for them.
Yeah, when their defense can't pull it out, their offense scores that extra 15 points.
And then they end up surviving a scare against Cal on the road, 38-32. And then they go to Tucson and play the vaunted Ortiz Jenkins.
Yep.
He did pretty well against him. Did you see the Chad Johnson catch from that game?
Yes.
How insane was that, dude?
I bet when scouts from NFL were watching that, they were just like, oh, yes. Especially in that era of, I want to say, not crazy catching receivers, because I feel like Chad was one of those first guys that you were like, just throw it up there and he's gonna snatch it out of there. Smith
threw this ball so far behind him on a slant that the way he contorted his body to come back to the football is unbelievable. It's probably all over YouTube. Yeah. You can find it anywhere, but
it's on his highlight reel. That's how I saw it and it's just
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things you'd ever. And that season, he led them in receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
With 3 guys. Smith threw 20 touchdowns. Simonton had 19 total. I mean, this is a really efficient offense, and great offensive line that stayed together. Jared Cornell, Chris Gibson, Vincent Sandoval, Robert Sykes, and Mitch White. I mean, they're a well-oiled machine by this point in the season.
Well, that's
crushing U of A and going into rivalry weekend.
Well, that's what everyone was saying, was nobody thought they would have really went through the conference like this, and that's when we look back at this Washington game and start saying, what if?
If they win that game, let's get to the Oregon game first.
I was going to say, let's finish it up and then we'll go back.
Go to the Fiesta Bowl, and then we'll talk semantics. But so they roll into the Civil War game. That's their big rivalry game against Oregon. They're ranked 8th, and Oregon is ranked 5th.
Yeah.
And Oregon, I believe, was the team that beat Washington.
Oh, okay.
So if they win against Oregon State, they hold the tiebreaker, and they get to go to the Rose Bowl over Washington, which, unfortunately for Oregon State, granted you have nothing to play for, but you can play for a BCS at large, and it's kind of what they do. And they pretty much go out and kick the crap out of them. I mean, the entire game, they're attacking Joey Harrington. Their secondary's playing really well. Keith Hayward Johnson, Terrence Carroll, Dennis Weathersby. Just the entire back end of the defense is confusing the shit out of them. And Johnson's making some catches. Prescott's making some catches, and they end up winning 23-13. And of course, you're ranked 8th. You beat the 5th-ranked team in the country. They're obviously out. So now you have to wait as the BCS, because it's 4 games, because this is before they had that championship and whatever.
Yep.
And you have to wait to see what you get, because they could just as easily be playing in something like the Holiday Bowl or something and get a job, but you're 10-1, and to their credit, because of how good they were, they get picked to play in the Fiesta Bowl against Notre Dame.
Well, that's what I read was a lot of, because obviously there was the coaches poll and the AP poll at that point, and I think they still have that shit. But one of them, they were ranked 5th, and the other, they were ranked 4th. And they were like talking about how this team has to go to a bowl against somebody that was decent, because if they go to the Holiday Inn Special Bowl, they're just gonna crush whoever.
Yeah, they're gonna beat Texas A&M by like 60.
Yes,
and
that's what I kept reading was like that's how a lot of these bowls get picked. Like, no, this is gonna be the best matchup for like the 3 and 4 team.
Yeah, and I mean this was a dominant team. Like, don't let people sell you short on this. I mean, 33.3 points a game, ranked 18th in the country. 17.7 points allowed, particularly in the Pac-10, that's 10th.
Yeah.
I mean, so they end up drawing Notre Dame, who, granted, in 2000 had a good season, but they never really beat anybody that was good from what I remember that year.
This is when their schedule was weird, and they would kind of pick and choose and not necessarily...
Well, I want to say this was the last year that they beat USC for probably over a decade.
Okay.
I mean, they were good. Urban Meyer was an assistant on that team, I remember.
That's interesting.
And he had been kind of fighting to get that spread offense that he has so successful with at Utah and Florida installed, and he got overrode, and after the season he left for Bowling Green.
Which ended up being great for him.
Oh, yeah. So. No, and I'm pretty sure that's why he's turned down Notre Dame every time they've offered him a head coaching job.
Oh, I bet.
January 1st, 2001, the Fiesta Bowl starts. And do you remember when Kurt Russell goes into Imagination Land and finds the woodland Christmas critters on South Park? And they do all sorts of horrible stuff to him. That's pretty much what happened to Notre Dame in this game. Oregon State just destroyed them.
Yeah.
Well,
this is what I want to talk about with the Washington game. This has kept everybody was saying like the what if, because they put these teams together thinking it's going to be an even game or an even-ish game, and Oregon State goes in and crushes Notre Dame, and then people start saying like, well, who else would they have crushed?
Well, here's the thing: you could tell like right off the bat in this game that like speed went to the advantage of Oregon State, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but particularly on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
While Oregon State didn't necessarily break through scoring super early, like getting a huge lead like off the bat, Smith was finding a lot of success throwing to tight end Martin Maurer.
Oh, okay.
Off of rolling out and play action and stuff.
Because they were so afraid of Chad and their receiving core.
Between that and Simonton and McCall and the fear of that, it just opened everything offensively. And Notre Dame had they had not seen a team like that on their schedule the entire season. Nothing of that caliber.
Yeah.
And it was really evident throughout the entire game.
That they really didn't know how to even begin to stop them.
Yeah, Johnson had just an amazing hitch and go route in that game. I mean, it was an ass kicking from start to finish. I can distinctly remember my dad watching this game and him just being like, wheels fucking fell off. Way better than them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I bet it was pretty evident. And that's the thing that you go back to this missed field goal and you go back to Manning getting out because, I mean, Erickson was furious at that. I remember seeing
he hit the guy, I think, at the ball.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it wasn't egregious, or it was, but whatever. But I'm saying, this was the only time that the Oregon State Beavers that they ever could be like, what if? Because they could have been, and I feel like now that they had the playoff, it would have kind of played out
they would have been in the top four of that.
Better in their favor.
Cunningham had said, watching that game, he's like, I'm watching the best team in college football this season.
Yep.
And they beat Notre Dame 41-9. And honestly, if a lot of these games at the time, even though they're BCS, they're still regional. So if you're going to have Oregon State, you're going to want to play them in Arizona because geographically that's closer, because that year in the Sugar Bowl, Miami, who had gone, I think they had the same record as Oregon State, or they were 11-1 entering the bowl game. They drew Florida.
Oh, okay.
And Florida that year, they were good. They were a top 10 team, but goddamn, Miami beat the brakes off them. Like, it was bad because in the national championship, you had 2000, it would have been Oklahoma, who was undefeated, who ended up winning.
Yep.
For whatever reason, Florida State, who had lost to Miami that year for their only loss, got to play in that game. So
instead of Miami, who should have went.
One-loss team, but if Oregon State runs the table and goes 11-0,
it's them in Oklahoma.
It's them playing Oklahoma, likely beating Oklahoma.
Well, that's what everybody was talking about, is what if.
Yeah, and it's just incredible to see, like, almost a shooting star, because after that...
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I love so much about this era of Pac-10 football is it's somebody new every year.
Mm-hmm.
Because after the USC dominance, in the mid-2000 or mid-2000 or whatever to the 2010s, then it's Oregon dominating for that allotted period of time. And now it seems to be kind of back open again everybody, and it's interesting. Maybe Oregon State breaks through. Maybe they make that Rose Bowl. Keep reaching for that Rose Bowl, everybody.
I'd love it. Real quick, and how long did Erickson stay on that Oregon State coaching staff?
2002.
There you go.
Yep.
And that's my man. He comes in for 3-4 years, and he's gone.
And then he's gone. He goes to the 49ers and implodes that franchise.
Exactly.
All right.
Hey, everybody. This is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.